All right, guys, how we doing? Back with you here on Friday afternoon, the 26th of July here. I thought we hadn't looked at this for a while. This is the market cap of Bitcoin dominance here. Let's get this off here so you can see it. So this is the BTC.D, Bitcoin dominance. So it's kind of in the context of Bitcoin showing some weakness, spring going sideways, perhaps as we anticipate an alt season, if it's going to come. This can be useful in helping us determine where and when that might be starting. So you look here and you go, well, that's, a chart's a chart, right? I wonder if it's technical. Well, of course, we just look here. So the first thing looking at it here, so it's, it's hard to miss this, right? So I can certainly see the potential here for some sort of a 5-wave structure here. All right, we get, essentially we get a we call it a triangle here of sorts here. So as we get the pretty typical wave 4 action here, and you could probably simplify it, just an ABC. Up we go. All right, so that gets my attention here. So I can certainly see a 5-wave structure here. So swing high to swing low, something's happening here. Let me just clear some of this up here. So with that established here, well, so for me, the very first thing that I see is this. Right? So I want to put some median lines on this. So if I try and get right on these here, I want to see, are we technical here? So if I look at that and I go, well, that's kind of got my attention here. I think I'm fairly close on those. Well, so no question about it, we got a corner pocket here, right? So 80% probability that we get there is, remember, always the caveat. Once we get the pivot, as long as that pivot holds, 80% that we get there, right? And we got there twice. Tagged it. So you could make a pretty reasonable argument here that we went 1, 2, 3, classic 4, just going sideways. We don't overlap the 1, so it's always just force of habit. You just standard ops, right? We take the length of the 3, project here. Here's the 38. We just, came up. Looks like that's perhaps a front run. So you're looking at that going, really? Right? Algorithms are in here working off of Bitcoin dominance? I'll let you draw your own conclusions. So as we get here, so 38, right where you'd be looking for the 4, up we go. Now, nothing says we're done there. All right, so let's think about it. So it's responding technically. So I can get an Elliott count here. I've got an impulsive structure here. So if we just think about, let's pull this up. Oh, well, before I pulled this up, I thought this was worth looking at too here. So we'd look, just taking it up to the next series of pivots. I thought that was kind of interesting. I promise you that's not happening randomly. So just using the second set of pivots, the higher set of pivots here to frame it, I've got a perfect tag of the median line. So if you're just standard ops here, right? If we just say, well, I got a contender here for a pivot. Well, what would you be anticipating, right? So if we're going to get this is going to continue to play Elliott ball here, we'd be anticipating a retracement of sorts. So Bitcoin's dominance, really? We're going to go down that low? Well, of course, let's get that right on there. And of course, anything's possible, right? It's hard to imagine that, right? So how is Bitcoin's dominance going to come down that far? So we go back to 52%. Well, shit, we've been there before, right? We come back to 52%. Right, you could look at it this way. We could just use the pivot here and the pivot here. Say, well, I've got a clear support zone here down. If I'm going to get a true 50% retracement, well, that sure lines up with the structure of the market pretty nicely. So there's a little more we can dig into here. So right now, I've got a contender here for the pivot to be in. Right, given that technical confluence. But there's a bit more here we can look at. So I'm going to take that off here. Oh, and of course you could, if you didn't want to use median lines, you could just throw a channel on it. I could do it this way, right? So that, there's always you have a choice when you're looking at channels. If you think, oh, I think I've got the top in here, I could do it this way, right? So I come down here to the 4, and maybe, all right, this is going to have some influence. Always a decision, right? Sometimes you want to look at both. Well, there are a few pivots here that, of course, are going to be significant here. We'd want to be paying attention to. Obviously, that one. Obviously, that one. And then look here. Right? Just looking here. Did we run into some prior resistance up here? Sure does look like it. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so we know a 50 is dead. This is where the 50 is. Note here, we've got all the market acceptance right here. Here's our point of control. If we're going to come down this far, we'd be on the edge of the value zone. Let's go to 4 hour. Take a look down here, because it looks like there might be some things that could be useful to us as we look down at this level. So just working off of this pivot down here, which is the April 3rd of this year. Well, of course, right off the bat, right? If I've got 3 pivots, the first thing I want to look at is, well, how are the median line? How's it responding to the median lines? I think this one is the lower low. All right, so there you go. Swing high, swing low. So we've tagged the median line on the larger degree, and now we've just tagged it again to the tick here on the 4 hour, right? On the secondary set of pivots. I think this market is responding technically. Well, and then if I look in here, it sure does look like I can get 5 coming up here. Right, there's a little ABC. Looks like I've got. Let's get that degree down. We'll go down here to micro. We'll go into blue. All right. So it looks like I can. Looks like I can certainly. This looks like a contender for an impulse. I've got a 3-wave correction. Now this is deep here, but you can probably get our 1, 2 here at this degree. So if this is our pivot, well, there's my impulse. So I can get a 1, 2, 3, A, B, C in the 4. 1, 2, 3. I mean, you can see it, right? It's right there, staring you in the face, right? You can't miss these. All right, well, it'd be hard to miss them. All right, so let's go sub-micro on that. We'll put that one in green. So I've got all the ingredients here to suggest that there's a lot to support here that we may have put in a temporary top. So there's a couple of retracement levels that I'd want to pay attention to. So I've got a completed impulse here. So I would want to pay attention to this retracement, right? So a bit in the context of the Bitcoin video that we just did, right? So I've got a swing low, swing high. I'm looking for an internal retracement. Now look how that 50 ties it into this structure right here, right? And we've got a low volume node there because we didn't have any market acceptance. So you could fatten that down to the golden zone here and take advantage of this pivot here. It starts to lay out rather nicely here, saying, oh, if we're going to come down, if Bitcoin's dominance is coming down and we're going to go through a correction at this degree, well, that puts us down at 63%, right, when were we last here? May. Doesn't seem unreasonable. I suppose this pivot is worth, we definitely want to get this wicked off here. You can see the market responded to it 3 times. So the thought that we might come up and then retest that support, I wouldn't ignore it. So what's happening here? Well, it may be the start of, looks like you might have an A wave going in. So we've got a couple of different levels. So here's from the 4, if we're done here, right? Depending on how bullish you are on Bitcoin and where we are currently in that structure and those swing relationships here. The one thing that I would add here is if this is the 4, let's just get this laid out here. If this is the 4, we want to check here and take a look what just happened here. So let's pull this off here. So if this is a 1 and this is a 2, right? So you're thinking, oh, can I finish up here? Am I done? Well, maybe not, right? So then we think about the possibility, well, maybe the 5 is just not in yet here, because if this is my 4, that sure looks like a 1, 2, right? I get A, B, C, we come right to the 50, and then I get an impulse. So let's consider an alternate here. Maybe we've got to be more optimistic. So 2, maybe 3, 4. Let's look at that. We'll get that up a degree. Go sub-minuet. Let's go to, we'll put that in yellow just so it stands out. All right, so if that's my 4, 1, 2, that makes sense. Well, look at the, let me take this off so you can see it here a little bit better. Look what happens here at the 3. All right, so from the 50, and you're like, oh, come on, man. There's no way the algorithm's in here on the Bitcoin dominance chart. No way. No way they're going to be responding to the median lines. No way. That's to the tick, right? So... I'll let you draw your own conclusions. So you look here and go, oh, it looks like they were after second target. Wonder why it didn't get there. Median line. Prior pivot, right? Front run on that could be. But so let's think about let me take this up a degree so we can see it better. Oh, fuck, come here. That's annoying. TradingView does that. I can't, come here. I want my degree. There we go. Let's go to, what am I on? Submit. That stands out a little better. Okay, so we'll go 1, 2. I've got an impulse here. Now, don't, you make a case that maybe we're not done here. There could be if we're going to come down here and test this structure here, maybe there's a 4, 5 still going in here. So we've got 1, 2, 3 is done. Maybe this is just a little ABC. Well, of course, then we'd want to be paying attention to the retracement level. If this is not the 5, let me take this up a degree. There we go. Okay, so if this is the 3 here relative to the 4, as in we've got more to go. Well, I'm certainly paying attention to the 1, the 2. I want to look for a retracement between the 2 to the 3, so I'm going to pull this up here. We know that was technical. Well, look, that sort of lines up rather nicely. Maybe that's an A, B. We're coming down for the C. Right now, if I look at the set of median lines, I have the 150 on here. So we've got you can see how perfectly that caught this little retrace here. So I've got a running parallel here on the side at the 150. So, that kind of gets my attention. So could we be coming down here? Test the 4 at the, so look what I'm doing here. I'm drawing this between the 23 and the 38, but no, I've got that little structure right there. So this is an area here, if we're going to come down here, it kind of gets my attention. Maybe, right, we get something like this. That would be just textbook off of the structure. In 23, 38, right, where we're looking at it. Now, you might have to give that a little more room. So if you were thinking about how this influences what you're thinking about with regards to alts and or Bitcoin, I'd be paying attention here, but I wouldn't use this to make a trade in Bitcoin. This is much more about, are we going to get an alt run or not? So keep that in mind. We can't trade the Bitcoin dominance, but we can certainly pay attention to how that looks, and then go over and do some analysis on Bitcoin and see how that relates. So do we have this potentially setting up right staring us in the face? A little retrace, got an algo target, got to return to the median line. I guess I got to take that one up and another one. Okay, so certainly not, reasonably technically, look what we're doing right here. We're right on the parallel, the lower parallel here as we sit here testing that. Now Bitcoin is just kind of sitting going sideways. We looks like we're certainly in a congestion zone here where there's just very little happening, at least at the moment. Now take note, right, we're going into the weekend. So this, right, often we see some volatility over the weekend, so that is potentially there looking to come up and finish that. Now, if we finish that, now we come back here, we put the whole thing together and say, okay, well now all the subdivision, the 1, 2, 3, 4, right? That's the pivot we started from. Looks like I could be finishing up there. You might, of course, you wouldn't want to ignore any dominant pivots here. Well, look where that puts us, right? That's right before, that's it. Bitcoin, well, shit, that's really prior to the alt run, right? So but that's just the last pivot I can use here before we come down. Well, that, I wouldn't want to ignore that. Something to think about, right? So what that implies is that if we're going to come up here and hit some resistance, get some of those technical pivots, and get that, well, that's implying that a reaction there, if we get it, might set up something deeper. Remember, we drew that 50 down here before we're going to go again. So this is potentially, from this low, we're just doing a 1, 2 before we go 3, 4, 5. Let's get that. We'll go to intermediate here, and we'll go to blue here. Okay, so potentially now that's all that's happening right there. If we were to pivot up there, right, I don't have this pivot. I'm just going to use that algo target. Right, so now we're right back here to all of this. Look how that lines up so very nicely here at our 50. So if we're going to get some sort of a change between the relationship between alts and Bitcoin, this is kind of teed up for it. A lot of, if you buzz around crypto Twitter, there's enough doubt now as to whether or not there is going to be an alt season, right? The more I see that, the more likely it is that we will get it, in my view, just being contrarian. So from here, if we got something like that, of course, we would draw that up. Right, maybe the whole thing starts moving over. Maybe it's going to take longer, right? We just got to put these up somewhere. So I wouldn't ignore the technicals over here by any means. All right, so that kind of puts it together. Now I know that's just a cluster F. You can't see that, but you get, pardon me, you get the idea of what I'm after here. All right, I want to treat this as I would any other chart. I want to analyze it exactly the same way. Where's the structure? Can I see any algo participation here? Likely, what did they do? How would that relate to anything I'm considering trading? So I would keep this, certainly, just save it as a, put it in your watch list and keep an eye on it. Some things to think about there. Okay, guys, if I've got time here, I'll do it. We'll do market cap minus Bitcoin. Let me see if I can get that done for you. Okay, guys.